Welcome to the Startup Grind.
Don't let me fool you.
That's actually my next question. You
Yeah.
said that you should not work only where you're from. Where you're from.
Sure. So I'm Canadian.
What have you do before starting your company?
Yeah, so I am 29. I started when I was 22, I guess. Yeah, 2011. I studied in Canada for 4 years, did my degree in media, moved to the US for 1 year right after that to study entertainment business. And 3 months before I was sent to graduate school, 2011, I entered a competition to become an intern for Charlie Sheen, the actor. People are laughing already. Yeah, exactly. So very famously at that time, Charlie Sheen was all over the news in the US and in Canada.
Because of the 2.5 Men?
Because of the drugs and strippers. And
I was trying to save you.
yeah, no, that's, yeah. So he was.
So he had a problem.
He had a problem,
He had a personal brand problem.
Yeah, but it got him a lot of attention, and so there's a company, internships.com, basically paid him $100,000 to use his name to do an intern competition, to actually find him an intern. So 90,000 people entered from all over the world, and very long story short, I made it to the top 50 in this internship competition.
That's a good ratio.
That's a good ratio, right? So I was doing videos every day. I was thinking, how can I make this not about myself, but make it about, let people along for the journey. And luckily, Canadians love when other Canadians are successful in entertainment or sports. So I wasn't yet really successful, but every story about Charlie Sheen, they could tack me on to the end of the story. By the way, there's a Canadian in the running to become Charlie Sheen's intern. So I did over 100 interviews, TV, radio, and print before I even started. I was still a student. I was doing Skype interviews before school, press interviews. So I was
Please explain what that means.
Sure. So I was on TV, interviewed by the news, in newspapers. People loved this story that I, from a small town in Canada, was about to make it in Hollywood to become Charlie Sheen's intern.
So basically what you did is you created a lot of attention around your name. And
Yes.
you linked this attention to Charlie Sheen. So you used Charlie Sheen to build your personal brand.
Exactly. That was my first project before I did anything else, was that.
I guess that helped you.
It did, because my first few clients discovered me through the buzz and the press. In fact, my very first client came to me and said, do you have any friends that are like you? Because we know you're too busy to do marketing for our wholesale candle and fragrance company in Ohio. But do you have any friends that can help us that are half as smart as you? That's what she said, and I said, actually, the internship, if I get it, is unpaid. So
I'm actually looking for a job.
I'm actually looking, yeah, I have to pay rent. Like, I have to buy food, so actually you can get me.
And bonus.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So
this is how you started your company? Actually, the clients approached you before having the agency.
I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I thought, I guess I should go and work at an agency or someone bigger than me, because that's what I'm supposed to do, right? I never thought of entrepreneurship as a path, and I'm so thankful that it happened this way, because for every year that I've worked, I've been in charge of my own business, and I've had the ability to call the shots in my own life. So
you're an entrepreneur by mistake.
Yes.
By a fortunate mistake.
Very fortunate mistake. Partly why I was able to was that through my schooling, but also just my own interests, I had tangible skills when I graduated.
What are those skills?
I'll explain, sure. So I always wanted to know how to make a very basic website. I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I don't know how to do that, but I'll look up on YouTube how to do it. And started to train myself, took a course in university, logo design. You've never seen what I did costume before I hired you, and it will stay that way. But I could do the basics of that, and I was genuinely interested in it. So I graduated with and then having the Charlie Sheen campaign, I had social media experience. Because people, they don't want to hear where you went to school. They want to say, they say, what did you last work on? What can you show me that you've done?
Hashtag portfolio.
Hashtag portfolio. And even further, let's deconstruct what a portfolio is. People might think, well, portfolio is a sample of my work. I don't think it is that, actually. Because I can look at a portfolio and know in about 5 seconds whether you're a junior, intermediate, or senior designer, developer, etc. I know right away. And the reason I know is based on how curated that collection of work is. If it shows the whole range of everything you've ever done, I know that you're just getting started. If there is a through line, a theme, a common trend, something that exists where all of the work can kind of have a theme or something that connects it all, then I know you're further along the line. So
what would be, so the connection is basically a proof of mastering your thing.
Exactly.
But what would be the sign for you that this guy or woman, it's a top level professional?
Yeah, it would be, and this goes back to how I would define a portfolio. I don't think a portfolio is a sample of your work. A portfolio exists to give me the confidence that I'm going to get from you what you've delivered to others. So it's actually, when I hire you, it's the confidence that I feel that you'll be able to do for me what you've done for someone else. And that's that common thread. It's hard to kind of, because it is somewhat intangible. It's a bit abstract.
We can call it as well the trust in the professionalism of an expert or a person.
Absolutely.
So tell us how you started the company and what was your first steps starting doing it, why you name it your name.
Sure, well, it was just me at the beginning, and I wasn't exactly sure what that trajectory would be. I wasn't sure where I was going with it, but I knew that I always wanted it to be based on what I really loved to do. People were panicked when they would say, oh, I don't have a website, I don't even know where to start, I really need help. And I found that in order to make a good website, there were a few other elements that were necessary, and that expanded my services offering. So photography is a huge part of what we do.
Do we have any photographers here? Yes, we have.
That's a great career. It's not going away anytime soon. Photography is incredibly important. Brand identity design, not just logos, but brand identity. What does that include? Well, it includes various compositions of the logo for different applications: web, print, email signature, physical signage, indoor, outdoor. So logo compositions, usually at least 4 or 5 for a given project. Color, typography, web and print implementation. So examples of how the client might use it. So much more than just a logo. The client thinks it's just a logo, and they think it's just a website that they can get done in a week. But as they start, a website is the excuse to engage. And as I was starting my business, I thought, actually, there's other elements that I know I need to do to make a really good job.
So what was the first steps starting your company? Did you start with a website or with a brand? What you did in the first place?
The first, I had a website. It was fairly basic, but I think I had proof of concept. Proof that I could deliver, as I was talking about with the portfolio, proof that I could do the job for them. Sometimes even before I really could do the job. So I signed on to, one of my first projects was a real estate agent based in Manhattan Beach, California, and she didn't know a lot about this kind of thing, and she trusted that I could do it, but it was my first WordPress website ever.
Okay, but usually when people are saying brand, they usually imagine themselves a brand of a company.
Yeah.
How did you select specifically to work with individuals, with the brand for people?
Yeah, good question. I felt like there was a gap in the market when I first launched. So
you saw the opportunity.
Definitely. As I was doing research, even just for jobs like what existed out there, it was like, okay, go apply at an agency, at one of the big agencies, and they probably won't hire you because you don't have experience. You know, classic case right out of school. So I thought, well, what about smaller businesses that don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars every month on retainer to hire an agency with a, you know, project manager and all these people working on the job. I thought, well, I myself with tangible skills, so the ability to hop in Photoshop, the ability to send a tweet, the ability to grow social media followers, those skills might mean that I could do a number of those jobs myself and keep the cost lower. That was really how I fell into it, was because I was able to do a lot and get results without a huge budget for clients. So I actually, and I like the dynamic of working directly with people.
So you're a people person.
Definitely, yeah. So it was like, not only was I doing the creative work, but then I had to sell the creative work. That eventually changed. That was actually a really important, one of the most pivotal moments in my business. Kostya doesn't even know this, but when I hired him, that was a huge moment, because I had to decide, am I going to be a creative, or am I going to be a brand strategist or account manager or CEO or whatever the
Was it
title
hard
is?
for you to decide?
Yeah, because I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to double my prices because now there's two people doing this. But also, the dynamic, it didn't make sense, because if someone hires me to give them direction on their brand, so, and I always recommend, regardless of your industry, well, particularly in a service business, don't do a lot for free at the beginning. Brand the experience of you learning about them and giving them strategy, brand it and sell it. So I don't operate like some traditional agencies will actually invest a lot in an initial pitch and sell it for a huge amount of money. For me, I'd rather keep my prices lean and actually charge for my time from the very beginning, rather than saying, you know, pay me for an hour of my time. We brand it, it's a brand audit. So I will audit your brand and give you recommendations moving forward, not with the assumption that you're going to hire me to do everything, but with a roadmap for you to be able to go and do it yourself.
We'll go to this specific area with the brand audit a little bit later.
Sure.
But first, I want to ask you, please tell us what's the main difference between a personal brand and a company brand?
I don't think there is a huge difference. I think it's founded in a confidence that a human can essentially be a business as well. I think it's changed a lot. I think even in the early years of personal branding, and I think I was fairly early into that, 2010, 2011, people are now having the ability to create their own businesses, create their own websites around their name. An example of some of my early clients, jewelry designers, makeup artists. I lived in LA, so a lot of entertainment people. But there's not a huge difference. I would say that probably the advantage you have as a personal brand, if you have the confidence to say, you know, I am a business and I have something of value, product or service that people need. I don't think there is a huge difference. I think there's actually an advantage as a personal brand, because humans like to interact with humans.
That's right. That's what they've done through, you know, the history. The company is a recent invention, right?
Well, look at us here right now. You know, we'll sit here and we'll be face to face, which I think nowadays is a privilege, to actually be face to face. I could have very easily just been Skyped in. We would have saved a lot of money on flights, multiple flights. My passport got stolen Friday night, so in London, so that's what was so complicated to get here. We had to rebook flights, and it was a whole thing. Anyways, I could have been Skyped in, but it wouldn't have been the same thing, right? Humans love humans, so as a personal brand, you have a distinct advantage because your profile photo on social media is your face. We believe that we get to interact directly with you. When I'm working for a celebrity, I'm creating a social media strategy and often actually executing it. I'm the one interacting with celebrities and other, you know, fans and people like that as that person. And it's very hard to have that kind of magic with just a logo. So while I'm focused on building personal brands and not being corporate, the ironic part is now, as a speaker, I travel all over the world and often work with companies to help figure out how do we humanize them. Because humans like humans, in person and online.
Who of you is building a brand around your name? Who is running a business? Who is making money using your personal brand? Just two of you? And Elena? Anybody else? Okay, I do that as well, and I think some people like Dumitru Slonovsky is also doing it, but he's not recognizing. Because the brand Dumitru Slonovsky means something in the Moldovan market, right? So for those who are doing this and for those who still learn to do this, why would it be important and necessary to work on your personal brand? Why it's important?
Well, I would say particularly people in creative industries that live in Moldova, that can work remotely, there's a lot of money and job opportunities that exist outside of this country. I'm sure they exist here as well, but I definitely know, take it from me, coming from LA and London, there is a need for creative talent. If we don't have the in-person experience to sell you, it's your personal brand that's going to do the selling for you. Vice versa, if you haven't invested the time and effort to build a personal brand or to control the first impression that you give others online, you will lose the job to someone else in another country who has a stronger first impression. So personal brand, if we take it and define it even a step further, I believe your personal brand is the control that you have over your first impression, the first impression that you give others online.
Tell us the story about how you connected to Costa and how Costa's personal brand, in this case, applied.
I would love to tell you that story, yeah, because I didn't really care where Kostya lived. I didn't know if it was London, or I didn't know if it was Eastern Europe, and I didn't know, and I didn't really care. It was completely based on his portfolio and the aesthetic. I thought, wow, I really like the style. It started like selfishly. I was branding myself, and then as we got into the process, I actually learned a lot from Kostya in terms of the branding process. So not only, when I talk about it being beyond a logo or this concept of sub-branding, that's something I credit to Kostya in terms of the work we were doing, because it's not just creating an identity, but when we're building a brand, it's also what's unique about this brand. How can we create an icon set or some kind of system to brand their services, their collections. For me, if you go to his Instagram, it's a bit obsessive, but I have an icon for every city that I travel, and it's in my email signature, and it's on my website. So I travel a lot, and so it's a conversation starter. It's a memorable thing that people associate with me. How many have we done? Probably 30 by now. I should stop traveling. Actually, it's good for you when I travel. Like, Kostya, I need more icons. But it was his personal brand that got him essentially pretty awesome.
So his personal brand was what? His Facebook profile, his Behance, his what? Tell us the whole ecosystem around a person's professional brand.
Sure. As a designer, Behance. Yeah, I found him on Behance, just looked at some of my favorite projects, went through all of them and thought I'll probably never be able to afford any of these designers, but why don't I hit a few of my favorite ones up and see if I can. And Kostya was my first pick, got on a Skype call, so we worked together for 4 years before we ever met in person. We only met in person 1 year ago. And so, what you're trying to think of, and this, Behance obviously applies to work as a creative. But it's not even just Behance, it's also SEO, you know.
So basically, people Google your name before contracting you, hiring, inviting, giving you money, basically.
And that's why I think it's cute when people think, well, I don't need a personal brand, or I don't have a personal brand. You do have one, because chances are someone is Googling your name before they hire you, before they meet you, before that in-person meeting. I mean, I'm here because of my personal
Who
brand.
Google people over people's name? I knew nobody would. Okay, so there are a couple of honest people here. So glad to be between honest people. And who is YouTubing over people? So you know what I mean, right? Like, it's used to be searching Google stuff, and now you want to see video with that people. You want to see them in action, like doing their job properly.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit before switching to the questions from the audience, from our guests. Tell us how you build your own personal brand. How you build your reputation online so that the clients will look, oh, that's a nice guy, I want to work with him.
Sure. I think one of the most important things I did and realize and encourage others to do is to become really good at one thing. So very often people want, when they launch or they're fresh out of school, they want to launch everything. Let's launch a competitor to Starbucks that has coffee, that has milkshakes, that has sandwiches, that has everything you could ever imagine. And the problem with that is that when you try to appeal to everyone, you effectively appeal to no one. So you already brought up the fact that I focus on personal brands. Does that mean that I can't brand a company? Of course not. I brand, you know, at sometimes more companies than people, but I'm known for personal branding. And because that's my area of expertise, and actually when I started it was even more specific. I worked in LA, in Hollywood, branding TV hosts, not actors, TV hosts, TV presenters, people that would work on TV and present a TV show or up on stage. There was no one helping those people build their social media and their online brand. And because I focused on that audience and became known as the guy to call if you need help in that space, had a few client examples that I could then show proof of concept, then at that point, once you break, once you become known as the guy or the girl to call for, insert the blank, then and only then should you break. Starbucks, back to that example, they do a lot of different things now, but when they started it was just coffee. They became really good at marketing. It's not actually that good, but they became good at marketing one thing. We are experts in one thing. And then once you break, you earn the ability to essentially work on the kinds of projects that you want to work on. But early on, I think you have to satisfy a need, which is what every good business does. Satisfy a need.
Somebody did not tell me this a couple of years ago. Okay, so we will make sure we remember that. And before going to your questions, guys, because I'm invited here, I will take the opportunity for a commercial break. This would be a commercial. You should know me as a digital communication, marketing, consulting, entrepreneur, and future investor, actually early investor. So we're going to questions now. Advertising is over. The first advertising. So we have 10 questions, and we'll start with the most popular one that have one vote. Yeah, you can actually go on the platform and vote for the question. So the first one is, Phil, what was the biggest problem you ever met in your way to success?
The biggest problem was also, this is a good question. I think the biggest problem was also the best thing that allowed me to do work. So I mentioned my ability when I graduated school, because I started this company right out of school. I never worked for anyone, I just did this. And the fact that I had tangible skills meant that I could work right away. but it was a double-edged sword, as we say, because I had a very hard time letting go of tasks. And it took me way too long to hire other people instead of just me do all of the work. The minute I hired Kostya, the logos and designs got way better. The minute I hired my partner, my business partner, Lauren, we were able to take on double the clients and grow as a company. So my first few years were very slow in terms of growth. Still good considering it was a one-person business, but as soon as I started to let go and realize, no, you don't and shouldn't do everything, just because you can doesn't mean you should. That was, I think, my biggest challenge.
So it's actually hard to build teams or to delegate your stuff that you usually do to others.
I still struggle with it. I consider, the fact that we have Kostya does all of our logos, that's like a huge win with delegation, but I still to this day am very involved with all of our website design because I have a hard time letting go.
Kostya, he mentioned your name so many times. Before Christmas, you should ask him to make your junior partner or something.
Don't give him any ideas.
I'll give you more after the talk. Let me ask him a couple more questions. Cool. When is the moment when you can say that you have a personal brand? That's a question from Anonymous, our friend Anonymous.
That's a really good question. I think you can say that you have a personal brand right now. Even if you haven't built something to show for it, you know that that's your homework. But you have a personal brand whether you like it or not. If people are typing your name into Google or into LinkedIn or into YouTube, you have a personal brand.
Yeah, you have Facebook and Instagram coming up, the first ones.
Exactly, so you are responsible for what they find, I think. I think you should assume responsibility over what they find. So having something as simple as owning your name domain and having a simple one-page website is a really good idea. You could go build one on Squarespace in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that on your website, is that you are not recommending to build people like sophisticated, complicated website from scratch, but you suggest them to use basically standalone solutions like Squarespace. In your case, it's Squarespace, but there are Wix.com and other stuff. Why and how?
Sure. So, because that recommendation is based on knowing my client, and my client is a busy individual that is looking for a solution that doesn't complicate their life but makes their life easier. So an example of my client could be a marine biologist, an investor.
Why a marine biologist would need a personal brand?
One of my most exciting projects was a marine biologist that hired me very early on to help grow her social media strategy, but effectively in 3 years we created a brand that we sold to Discovery Network as a TV show.
Tell us the story.
So I worked very closely with her to help figure out how we could take what she was doing in real life and translate that online in an exciting way for people that didn't have the ability to go to South Florida and actually see all these animals and mammals, in real life. So I worked a lot with the video and sound people to create photos and video assets that we could use almost, as viral content online. Facebook and Twitter were our best performing platforms. But the story is we needed money to finish the project. And we went in for a meeting at a bank with 3 kind of investors that represented the bank.
They were the decision makers to give or not to give the funding, right?
Exactly, yeah. And so she flew me from LA to Florida and had the whole team there. And my client went around the table. So let the video person speak about all the great video assets we had created. And the bankers were kind of like, and then, the sound person was like, oh, we have the most beautiful natural sound of these animals being rescued. And the bankers were like,
Not impressed.
no. So we literally went around the table, and I could see my client starting to get anxious. And I also was getting anxious because I was like, they do not care about all the creative, beautiful story to be told. They were like, where's the money? How are we gonna make money on this? So then, almost as a last minute thing, my client said, Phil, and I was in the corner, because I felt like the least qualified person to be in that room. She said, Phil, talk about what you've done. And I said, well, we've used social media as a research tool to figure out what people get most excited about. In doing that, we've attracted an audience of 200,000 on Facebook and 150,000 on Twitter, and these people are all really excited for when the show comes out, and they're, we have crazy engagement every single day. They gave specific metrics. And then and only then were the bankers actually happy.
They said now they're talking.
Exactly, because social media became proof of concept. We built a brand that became something tangible that we could communicate. People care about this, it became proof of concept.
So is it also personal brand directly influenced by the numbers of likes and followers?
Definitely. Half the speaking engagements that I book around the world are because people go to my Instagram, or they go to my Twitter, or they go to my speaking page and see that I've done it before in other places. So even then, when I'm considered for a job or hired or speaking any of this, I think, okay, how do I prove that I'm capable of not only meeting their expectations but exceeding them? People are always sizing you up, and I think that your personal brand is the ability to have some say in that narrative. You get to choose by having a simple website or having a bio that communicates your value. Having all of that and having your touch on that improves the likelihood that you will get the gig, that you'll get the job.
So tell us a working, cool trick, not trick, maybe strategy that every person in this room should use or could use to get more followers on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that.
Sure, I love that question because I obsess over that question because I love Instagram. By the way,
Who loves Instagram? Who hates it? Okay. Who hates it?
Well, I also hate
I
it.
hate
love to
it
hate
because
it.
it's a lot of my time. I hate it so much.
It's a lot of work. But you know what? But just by looking around this room and just the general age of people here, people here know how to use social media as a marketer, even if you don't realize it, better than most. If you don't have a job or you're struggling to find work, then go into social media strategy, as long as you like it. I mean, there's just so much work to be had in this space. So I would say if you're trying to get followers, you don't really want to...
Don't buy them.
Don't buy them, yeah, because it's artificial. Yeah, buying them doesn't actually do anything. I mean, sure, we'll add the follower number up higher, but chances are it'll drop within time because Instagram's become very strict about that. Follower growth, again, like your portfolio, people will follow you if when they arrive at your profile are enticed to get more of what you do. So who are the best people on Instagram? Photographers, designers, influencers. How do influencers become influential? They have a very clear understanding of who they are and why people should care. It's very much about giving. What am I doing here that's going to be useful for someone else? So instead of using Instagram to say, oh, I'm at dinner with my friends.
What you can give? Give us a couple of receipts. Like what you can give to your audience so that you can be useful for them.
Yeah, it's in the way that you would think about your portfolio or your resume, your job experience. Think about what your Instagram says about you, the first 6 photos. Because when we land on your profile, we see your display picture, your bio, your website, and the first 6 photos.
What's your Instagram? I would like somebody from the startup brand team to open Phil's Instagram to actually look how it looks. Yeah, can we do that? Your Instagram handle?
It's my name, Phil Pallen.
So, do you recommend to use your name or something sophisticated for your Instagram name?
It depends. I would just, oh yeah, this is my website. I would be more focused on, yeah.
I wanted to see the last 6. Oh, okay, this one, these
Yeah.
6 updates.
So let me give, you asked for a tangible tip. I'm going to give you 2 tangible tips. Why is this middle one not loading?
Please refresh it.
Yeah. There we go. Okay, so this is my Instagram. So my goal is for when people land on here to feel motivated to want to follow me. So what I do to create my first impression is I create rules. So does anyone see what some of my rules might be?
Yeah, because that's my rule as well.
No selfies.
No selfies, that's true. Yeah, there's a photo of me in every other photo. And it creates a checkerboard effect. Because even on desktop and on mobile, it's 3 photos. So I often, as we're talking about Instagram strategy, sometimes you just need to organize content to give you permission and a system to create within it. So I think of 2 rows of 3, and I post, the first rule is that I post a photo of me in every other photo. And that way people don't think that I think that I'm an influencer or a model or something like that. I'm lots of things, but I'm not neither of those. So the second rule is that I want, without being obnoxious, I want to show people my work as an agency so we get jobs. I say my work, but it's actually Costa's. Every other place I go in the world, I say mine, but I have to be honest, it says.
There's actually a book about this that it's called Show Your Work.
Yes.
So you basically have to publish on your social media profiles what you're doing. It's the only way that people will actually associate that work with you.
Exactly. I think people would probably look at my Instagram more than they'd look at our website portfolio. So I think it's my responsibility to make sure that I post my projects. So as we're scrolling down, every 6th post on my Instagram, without fail, is a client project.
Whoa, so that's some strict rules here?
Yes. So, and by doing it 1 in every 6, it creates that same effect. So,
for example, this one?
No, that's my mom.
Or your project.
So yeah, exactly. So this one, if you scroll down a little bit, that one is one of the first, so this one, so right now, and then it obviously will all shift as I add the next post, but by keeping it every 6 posts, there's a repetition without going overboard in the work that I do so people can see it.
Okay, that's some interesting rules, but some of the experiences using Instagram for your clients, what was the strategy? What was your recommendation for them, how to use it?
And I have a podcast, and this is one of the questions I ask a lot when I'm speaking to people with a lot more followers than me. I'm like, how did you do it? How did you get to that point? And the answer is not satisfying, but it is consistent when I talk to these people. It is the focus on engaging others instead of just broadcasting yourself. So responding to comments, taking time to actually look at what is trending in your area or what the top hashtags are. So go into those hashtags and commenting on those people's posts. Not in a spammy way, not in a way, come check out my work, but in a thoughtful way.
Nice photo.
Or something that shows something that shows you actually made that comment. Every person that I've ever asked about growing their Instagram into the hundreds of thousands say that it's engagement, actually taking time to engage your audience and be very clear on what it is they want.
So here's a question. Do you do that for your clients? Do you do this engagement? Like commenting from your client's name on our profiles?
I don't do as much social media management these days as I used to. My goal, okay, let's not get too low here, because
Let's go to the top.
It gets embarrassing.
Let them see your... No, actually, please bring the Instagram back, but to the top.
It's okay. You're
to
almost getting too low.
Very, very top.
It was like I was whoop, that's before I knew what I was doing. Get back up there. Yeah. I don't do so much social media management anymore because I don't want to. I'd rather teach them how to do it. I like to build systems and hand it to the client and say, here's your system, now go and do it. If you need help, call me. But I don't want anyone emailing me to update their website. I don't want anyone emailing me and say, can you send this tweet for me? No, you send it. I'm not a bitch around here. Thank you very much.
Exactly. I so much agree.
I like to build systems, and it's the client's responsibility to do it. If they need help, great. Sometimes we rework the systems, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't work in a restaurant. I don't take orders.
Please stand up a little bit. Let's analyze what you have here.
Okay.
Why you follow only 2,000 people and 13? They are not cool enough for you, or what?
If I follow more than that, then I'm not going to see all the posts that I actually want to see.
That was a joke.
Okay.
Okay, so you indicated that you are now in Moldova, right?
Yes.
Why you do that?
I travel a lot, and I think a lot of people who follow me don't travel as much, and I think they find it interesting that right now I was bundled up in a jacket with a scarf, and 1 week ago I was on a camel in Morocco. So I try to bring people along for the adventure. I used to have the flags now and next in my profile, but I tried to shorten it so that the bio is even shorter. Yes,
Okay,
it's
so
just a fun thing.
The next one is about the bio. So you basically, from the first line, you say that you are a brand strategist, and you position, build, and promote people and companies. So basically, it's like a pitch.
Yeah.
That's the
Like a
one
brand
liner,
sentence. Exactly.
and it's there. And that's the link to the LinkedIn. Yeah, because
This is a link tree. The service that I pay like $5 a month or something to customize it, but it's actually free. That allows you to have multiple hyperlinks on your Instagram profile. So if you click that, it will show you recent blog posts, link to my podcast. The only place on Instagram where you can link people. Oh no.
Man, you have a problem. The
Uh-oh.
link to link is broken. Okay, we'll take this opportunity for our next commercial break. Please open Instagram.com/gurau. That would be my Instagram. Let's analyze it. Not envision. Instagram/gurau. Yeah. Din, 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 din. So, first of all, follow me, right? Second of all, my ratio of following people is so much better than his ratio, so there is a higher chance that I will follow you back.
Sure.
And yeah, there is a cool app, I don't know if you've heard about it, it's called X42. You should search it on the App Store or Android and then download it. And yeah, if we scroll a little bit down, can you scroll? Okay. You also will see that I use basically the same tactic as he does, and that's by accident, completely by accident. Okay, thank you, that was the advertising. We go back to taking questions.
It looks good though.
Oh, thanks.
I
Coming
think
that
that's
from
really
you.
good. How do you decide what you're allowed to post and what you're not
Hey, it's
allowed to
me.
post?
It's me addressing questions here. Well, we'll talk about that after. I'll charge you for 1 hour. Okay. Okay, so can we go back to the slideshow, please?
Where is that? Is that in Berlin?
No, that was Brussels.
Oh, that's cool.
So, the next question. In one statement, how to build a great brand? That's a question, again, from Anonymous.
In one sentence.
Yeah.
In one sentence, how do you build a great brand? You recreate the in-person experience.
Deep, but you answered the question. Okay, that one we did before. What's the difference in creating a brand for, okay, that we did as well. What's the most annoying thing your clients do or say?
Oh, I love this question. They don't follow the rules that we work very hard to create. So we'll give them a brand board, what we call a brand board, with basically all the guidelines on how to stay on brand. And then I'll see them posting quote cards and blog posts and all this stuff with like Arial font. I'm like, what are you doing? You just invested in having a visual brand. You hire us to create these rules and then you don't follow them. Drives me crazy. Or if I make a website for a client and it's beautiful and I go back to it 6 months later and it looks like a different website because they've just gone rogue and just like not follow the rules, that's my biggest annoyance, I'd say. Because I work really hard to build, projects that we're really proud of, but then like I can't send a prospective client to their website to go, ooh, actually I don't want to hire these people. When we've done all the right stuff, but there's only so much you can do, and then sometimes they get a little crazy.
I have a tricky question. We talk about influence a lot, and now a lot of people want to become influencers. Do you think there are only good influencers, or there are also bad influencers, and how to be a good influencer?
That's a great question. I think first of all, there's different levels of influence. So
You want to talk about the micro influencers? Or?
yeah, that's what I was gonna talk about. You don't have to have over 100,000 followers to be considered to have influence. So even over 1,000 or over 2,000 is already getting you to the point where brands actually might want you, to talk about a product or to, plug something. But what makes an influencer good versus bad is really the same as branding. It's knowing your audience. I think the number of followers matters less, but your ability to influence the audience you do have matters more. So looking at more than just the number of followers, but looking at the number of comments and the type of comments and engagement, the number of likes on a post. Brands are becoming savvier now to look at more than just the number of followers, because we know that that's pretty easy to fake. So I would say what makes a good influencer is someone who, two things, knows their audience very specifically. And one of the exercises that I go through with clients, not just that want to become influencers, but anyone that's building a business, when I say, who is your customer or who is your audience, don't give me an age range and a gender and leave it at that. Men and women between the age of 25 and 54 that like sports, that doesn't work anymore.
That's boring and old.
It's boring and old, and it's too general. Now we're after, instead of quantitative understanding, we're after qualitative
Young
analysis. Yeah, so getting specific. And I even say, tell me exactly who your customer is. Have someone in mind that you're writing to.
So you have to actually picture that person. Try to understand the habits and the media consumption of that person.
Exactly, and it's a strategy that's been used years by radio presenters, radio hosts. So when you're listening to the radio, and I studied broadcast journalism, that's originally what I thought I was going to do. But when you're a radio host, you don't imagine talking like this to a room full of people. In order to do that job well, you are speaking to one person across the table. There's no one actually across the table, but you speak to that one individual. And as a business owner, it's exactly the same. I speak to Valerie, who is she's a barber, so she cuts my hair when I'm in LA. And Val is a barber. She's great at it, but she'd much rather, for a living, sell her art. So I think, what could I tell Val that would inspire her to do this full time instead of just settle with cutting hair, which she kind of likes, but not really.
So you're trying to address the needs of one specific audience.
Exactly, and I will actually write her name. If I'm on a plane or on a train and I'm sitting there and I write an email blast or a tweet or something, I'll actually write her name in it and go back and change it with the merch tag. And by speaking to one direct person, it can really transform how your message will resonate with your audience. When you're speaking to one person, you don't say things like everybody or all of you. To generalize like that, it just becomes impersonal. Remember, we're recreating the in-person experience. If you and I were going to sit down and have a conversation over coffee, what would I learn about you? That's the content. How would you share it with me? That's your personality. That's what I get in real life. Branding is really just the exercise of recreating that online.
So look, we have one person here in this audience, and it's a startup creator. Yeah. How do a startup founder or co-founder know which influencers is good for them and which are not? So which influencers are good and we should work with them? It's only engagement, it's knowing his audience, or it's something in addition to that?
Yeah, I would say that the total number of followers matters less than what they can show for proof of concept. So if you're gonna do a deal with them, give them free product or even more, pay them to post about something, what have they done previously that represents a success to prove that they're capable of the job? So that, yeah.
So you need some information to trust them more. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly. They need to do a very good job of conveying to you what the result will be. Now, they can't guarantee sales, but they could say, when I did a similar campaign with this client, the results were X, Y, and Z. Sometimes the result is awareness, increased awareness, which is harder to measure, but it's their responsibility. If they're the influencer, it's their responsibility to convey the value that you as the client will get from them. And if they don't do a good job of that, don't hire them.
What's the difference and the connection between influencing something and personal recommendation? Is there any link?
I think there is. I think there is a link. I think in the way that we do business, social media is great. Social media is great, but it still will never replace word of mouth, referrals, recommendations. It will never, ever replace that. When you ask any business owner, and I know there are some here, when we think about what's our number one referrer of traffic, if we've done a good job, it's people that have told someone about you. And as you know, on the selling side of that, it's always easier to sell to someone who's been referred by another human. Again, humans love humans.
So reviews and recommendations, that's the best, that's the creme de la creme.
Absolutely. Last week I spoke at an event in London for a friend of mine, and the event was called Content Live. And I knew that the audience likely couldn't afford to hire us one-on-one for branding, but I knew I needed to get something from them. If I was going to I talked about Pinterest a lot last week for them. That was a new strategies around Pinterest. And I thought, they're going to get value from me. I've spent time preparing materials for them. I'm hot on their mind, a few days after the event. So what I did was I emailed every single person attendee from the conference. They gave us a booklet with everyone's email, and I love when that happens, because it means I will email you. Leads, exactly. So I emailed all of them and said, I loved meeting you, and then I put in one simple custom sentence. Some people I couldn't remember, so I gave a general sentence. But I said, I would love if you had a good experience to take 2 seconds and give me an endorsement on LinkedIn. If you want, pull up my LinkedIn profile, because these are brand new. Sorry.
Please do. Okay, so basically you have to ask people to do something.
You have to
They
ask them.
don't do that on just, let's give a cool, positive review for Phil.
Exactly. You have to ask them, and even when you do ask them, chances are they won't do it. So I asked 80 people to do this. Scroll down to my recommendations. There we go.
Whoa, 26?
Yeah, so
Man, you
click
rock.
show more. These are all from Friday. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I got 9 recommendations since Friday just by emailing them and saying, hey, would you mind leaving me a review on LinkedIn? You have to add me first and then I can send a request. This is the first place where conference organizers look before they hire me, which is not true. But I say it anyways.
Fake until you make it.
Exactly, I say it anyways to create more urgency, right? People go, oh, it is? Okay, great. If you could take a few seconds to say something nice about me, and that's what happened by asking. And now trust me, these will end up everywhere. I'll put them on my website, I'll send them out, I'll do all kinds of stuff like that.
That works. Man, cool job.
So if you had a good experience tonight, would you please leave a review on LinkedIn? It's the first place that conference organizers look if they're hiring me. Damn it, I revealed that it's not true. Now no one's going to leave a review on LinkedIn.
It is true, and authentic and you know your audience. You're doing a great job. And we still have 5 minutes, so I would actually want to take this opportunity to go back to Slido to check the questions. I don't want to ignore any one of you, because every one of you is so important. So, key steps to undertake when you want to change careers and become a corporate brand manager. So I'll try to look again to understand exactly what Anonymous wanted to ask. So the key steps to undertake when you want to change career and become a corporate brand manager. Did you understand?
Yeah.
The question? Because I'm not sure exactly what was the meaning.
Well, my answer to the question is that I don't know the answer to the question because I don't work as a corporate brand manager. But the good news is a lot of people do. I don't know the answer to this question, so it's my job to find the answer. What I would do if I want to become a corporate brand manager, that's the first term I'm going to type into LinkedIn, and I'll filter by location, so find some people that are doing that locally. Ideally, you can meet them in real life, or find some people in another city that are doing this locally, and get in touch with them and do some research. These people are busy, so be ready and organized with 2 to 3 questions, and rather than emailing them saying, hey, I'd like to pick your brain or take you for lunch. I hate all those sayings. But you could do an informational interview or start the request by complimenting them. I loved your blog post on this. I love your perspective on this. Wow, your portfolio is impressive. I wondered if, right? So
you have to be around the people you want to become.
100%. I thought for a long time I wanted to be an architect. And then in high school, I understudied with an architect for 1 day. And I was like, oh my God, I do not want to do this.
So basically you responded also to the question how to get into the brand management for big companies. You have to be there.
You have to know what they're looking for. The only way you're going to know what they're looking for is by asking people in similar positions, what do you look for?
Let's take on a more personal question.
Great.
When you wake up, at what hour?
It depends what time I go to bed the night before.
Okay. Please describe a day in the life of a brand manager.
Okay. Depends where I am in the world. Typically, my favorite place to be is Europe because I can wake up. I potentially have time to go to the gym because if I don't go in the morning, I'll never go. I still don't go that often, so don't believe it. But I try to go when I'm in a routine. But then I set my hours. So if I'm up late the night before working, which happens a lot if you're working in the US with American clients, because you've got East Coast, and even worse, West Coast, which is now an 11-hour difference from where we are right now, I think. 10 or 11-hour difference. So it depends, but that's the beauty of it, is I get to set my own schedule. So last night I was up till 3. This morning I woke up at like 10, I think. So it's quiet until noon or 1 p.m. So I try and do my own work first, my own projects, because I know by 3 p.m. West Coast people wake up and they're gonna want me to do whatever their emergencies are. So I love being in Europe. I hate being in LA because I wake up and it's just an emergency from the minute I open my eyes, because I'm in the last time zone. So it's like, London has already finished their day. East Coast has found something to complain about. They're 3 hours ahead, so they're panicked. So I much prefer being in Europe and work for a few hours on my own stuff, have some food, then I start to work on client projects in the afternoon and get ready to reply to people as they wake up. But it means you also work very late.
Okay. And I think no, that's not the last question. What's your filter on Instagram?
I don't have one filter on Instagram. I actually, I don't even use a filter in Instagram or ViscoCam. I use Photoshop to just essentially cool down the color. So I have one particular tone. It's kind of like
Photoshop for PC or Mac?
Mac.
Okay. What's an average price for personal branding from you?
Oh wow, someone wants to hire me. Okay. I would say our prices, well, they're all on our website, but they're comparable to a PR company. So typically, clients would come to us and decide to hire us maybe instead of hiring a PR company, public relations, so that we get them in magazines, that kind of thing. Typically, I would say on average, a few $1,000s a month over the course of, on average, 3 to 4 months.
Cool. Do you think the influencer communication marketing will grow in the future?
I definitely think so.
And why do you think companies, startups will work more in the future with influencers and not over, let's say, platforms, channels of communication?
Humans like humans, and influencers are a new way to show, again, this theme of proof of concept. It's the difference between having a fake model in a brand shot and actually a brand like Glossier, if you've ever heard, they use their own employees as their models. It's this idea of transparency.
Authenticity.
Authenticity, so actually giving a face to your customer as a real human. Humans like humans. So influencers are a way of manifesting that.
Let's do an experiment. Guys, if you loved the session and the interview, please show like this. If you didn't, show like this. Okay, so one person did not. Anybody else did not love it? Because I will give them the money back. I'm not kidding.
Oh. Like the money back?
Yeah. nice one.
Can I ask
Okay.
a question?
Yeah, sure. Now you have basically that's. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have now an entire hour of asking him questions for free. Yeah, because the sponsors paid for him to be here. And if you want to say something, because this is Startup Grind, that this is a culture that we are, myself speaking from Startup Grind right now, I'm being an ambassador. If you want to tell us as an important information, an announcement, anything, you have 1 minute, and you can use this minute the way you like it. And you can use it as well to address a question. So, the first one, here we go.
Hi, my name is Christian, and I'll address 2 quick questions just to be more satisfied. First one is, you said that the corporate branding and personal branding is very similar. And I guess the personal branding in different industries is also quite similar, but there is some slight differences. So I'd like to go a little bit deeper into that. And the second question, I'm not sure, but I think I saw your tattoo, a picture of your tattoo on the LinkedIn page. So it's not that often that people, expose their tattoos on a professional, social media platform. So I'd like you if you can talk a little bit about that as well.
Sure.
Very short.
Very short, okay. So the first question, yes, the branding process with companies, with personal brands is very similar. I'd say the differences are nuances that I don't know at the beginning of the project, but I've learned. One tip that I can give anyone if you're in a service business, clients will call you and say, are you an expert in luxury hospitality or in science or whatever? And you can say, I've given you permission to say, no, you are. So when clients come to me and expect me to be an expert and focus on their industry, I don't. I work with clients all over in many different industries, but I always convey to them, actually, it's a disservice to you for me to be an expert in there because I'm learning about it just as your audience is. So that's question number one, I would say.
But if you take an example,
Maybe a little bit later,
Okay.
individually, you'll have the chance. And the
Sure.
second one, the two.
The second question was, what was the second question again?
about a tattoo.
Oh, the tattoo, yeah. So I like to break rules. So if someone tells me I shouldn't have a tattoo or I should cover it, then I want to show it. So for me, because I own my own company and I can do whatever I want, I got a tattoo. In fact, 2 clients before this got logos that we designed tattooed onto their body, and then I got jealous because I didn't have a tattoo, and I thought, that's really cool. They're going to die with something I made on their body. It's grim, I know, but it's cool.
That's some strange wishes and desires.
I know. So yeah, that's why I got it.
Hi, my name is Alex. First of all, thank you for a great interview, guys. It was really interesting. And my question is, if you have something about that, like, what would be an algorithm of launching a new brand?
Say again, sorry? Yeah.
What would be the algorithm of launching a new brand on the market?
Sure.
Step by step, 5 steps, 6 steps, I don't know.
I'll give you 3 steps. How about that? So, launching a new brand in 3 steps. Start by positioning the brand. If it's already out there, then you want to look at repositioning or have a discussion around, are we doing something we love and enjoy? And more importantly, is what we're doing satisfying a need in the business? Or could one slight pivot make us more productive or more successful? So position. Second, build. Specifically the elements of building a brand: photography, brand identity, website, in that order. Those are the 3 steps.
Second?
Brand identity. So your logo, your typography, color, all of those. So photography, brand identity, website. That's to build something to show for what makes you great. The final one, promote. How do we build the work? How do we sell the house that we've worked really hard to build and stage? And the number one mistake that people make is they just focus on the promotion of something. They take a house to market that doesn't have a roof. You're only going to get a fraction of the value you deserve. So in that final stage of promoting, it's really important to focus. Rather than being average on 10 platforms or avenues of sales, be really good on 1 or 2 or 3.
Okay, one final question.
Hi. You said that one of the most difficult things you had to do was to take the leap and form the team. So what would be the trigger for that, in your opinion?
Yeah, the trigger for me to decide, am I going to be a designer or am I going to run a business, for me was the tension that I felt with the client. So a client would hire me and say, Phil, give me some strategy on how to create a jewelry brand. Great. Have that conversation, everyone's happy, and then I have control because I give them the strategy, and then they say, great, we'd like to hire you to build the brand. Even better. So they hire me to build the brand. But then I've given them back the control. Because if they don't like what I design them, obviously I think what I design is good. So it was that tension that made me realize I need to be in the middle of this. So Kostya never actually speaks directly to any of our clients. That's my job. I sit in the middle. So client, designer, and sometimes we go back and forth on designs before it goes to the client. But by me being in the middle meant that that was my job. That has become my job. And that moment was an aha moment in the growth of the business.
Nice. I just found out that you have special presents for the ones who addressed questions for you.
I do.
So you can give them personally. And what's this? Please explain.
This is my form of a business card. I don't really do business cards. They're lip balms with my logo on it, but it also says "Kiss my brand." So there you go.
I think so.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, perfect.
Amazing. Thank you very much for all the insights.
Thank you for having me.
So now we're here asking questions, but if you want to make an announcement, it's your chance, your minute of glory. Anybody want to sing here? No? Okay, so I'll do a final advertising, because that's what I do. You should definitely search on YouTube Academia Rocket. You heard about Academia Rocket?
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah. So definitely, please show how it actually looks. Academia Rocket on YouTube. That's my minute of open mic. In search. No, Academia Rocket, right? And there is this red button, abonnează-te, right? Subscribe. You should definitely subscribe. Yeah, exactly like that. Because there is a ton of cool insights. And actually one of the previous, most recent videos, it's about influencers. And you'll find more about one cool initiative called the Influencers Hub. That's a super secret stuff that we are doing right now. You'll find more later. So yeah, please do that. Now have time, have fun meeting, networking, eating pizza, drinking all this 0% Radler, Fanta, Sprite, Coca-Cola, and so on. Thank you very much, and let's have some fun.